Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into some A-level media studies revision?
Yeah,
I know, right? It can be a lot, especially with that IDICUS exam coming up.
yeah.
But don't worry, we're here to break it all down and make it a little less stressful. So we're going to be focusing on Channel 4's Superhuman ad. You know, the one for the 2020 Tokyo Paralympics.
Yep.
It's a fantastic case study, really helps you understand all those key media concepts you need to know.
For sure. And we're going to break it down into easy to manage sections.
Okay.
We'll be looking at media language, representation, audiences, and media contexts.
Perfect.
By the end, you'll be able to analyze pretty much any media text they throw at you in the exam.
Great. Let's jump right in with media language. So we're talking about how the advert is actually put together.
Yep.
You know, all those techniques they use to
Yeah.
grab your attention and make you think.
Right.
Now, advertising, as you know, it's a bit of a unique beast, right?
Yeah,
So it has to grab your attention right away. But when it's for an awareness campaign, things get even trickier
Yeah.
because it's not just about selling a product, is it?
Right. It's about raising awareness about important issues.
Think about all those hard-hitting campaigns you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they can actually have the opposite effect.
Yeah, you're right. They can be a bit overwhelming, can't they?
Yeah. It's like people get bombarded with so much negativity.
Yeah.
It's almost like a defense mechanism.
Yeah. And that's what we call compassion fatigue.
Right. So how does Superhuman avoid falling into that trap?
Right.
Because it's definitely not a doom and gloom advert.
It's interesting, actually. It's really clever how they've done it.
Yeah.
Think about the soundtrack, for example.
All right.
So You Want to Be a Boxer from Bugsy Malone.
Oh, yeah.
It's really upbeat, almost celebratory, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Which is not what you might expect for an ad about the struggles faced by Paralympians, is it?
Right, right.
But it really works.
It does, yeah.
Because it highlights their resilience, their super side. Yeah.
Without ignoring the human element of their challenges.
That's a good point, yeah. It's not ignoring the reality, but it's not drowning in it either.
Right.
And the sound effects, they play a role too, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
All those grunts and groans you hear during the training scenes.
Yeah.
Especially alongside that uplifting music.
Right.
It really emphasizes the physical effort these athletes are putting in.
It does. It's such a subtle technique,
Yeah.
but it has such a powerful impact.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I guess some people might argue that, like, a more emotional approach would be more effective, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe even a somber approach to really drive home the message.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's true, a more traditional approach like that.
Yeah.
It might tug at those heartstrings, generate sympathy.
Right.
But the problem is, it kind of reinforces that stereotype of Paralympians as victims, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean.
What's refreshing about Superhuman
Is that it celebrates their strength and their achievements.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it a much more empowering message, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like flipping the script on how we usually view disability.
Right.
Now, speaking of how meaning is created, we can't forget semiotics, right?
Right.
This is where Roland Barthes comes in.
Yeah.
Remember him from your studies.
Of course.
It's all about analyzing the signs and symbols in media texts.
Uh-huh.
And Superhuman is packed with them.
Oh, absolutely. It really is.
Like, for example, the visual contrast between, like, the athlete's sports gear and their everyday clothes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's a really simple but effective technique, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
1 minute, they're these powerful athletes.
Right.
And the next, they're just ordinary people going about their day.
Exactly.
It really reinforces that message of, real people doing extraordinary things.
Yeah, it does. And if you want to take it a step further in the exam
Okay.
and really impress those examiners, you can even bring in Claude Lévi-Strauss
Oh, okay.
and his theory of structuralism.
Right.
Remember binary oppositions?
Vaguely.
Those contrasting pairs of ideas that create meaning.
Right.
We can see that in the advert, too.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, let's see.
Yeah.
Think about those dream sequences
Okay.
and how they're contrasted with the reality of, like, waking up to an alarm clock.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Or that on-screen graphic that says, to be a Paralympian, there's got to be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And then they juxtapose that with the positive, empowering imagery of the athletes.
Wow. Yeah.
It's powerful stuff.
It is. They're really challenging those old ways of thinking about disability, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's so cool about understanding these theories, right?
Yeah.
It gives you a framework for analyzing media in a really sophisticated way.
Right.
You're not just describing what you see.
Yeah.
You're digging deeper into the how and the why.
I know. It's like my brain is buzzing with all these analytical tools. I feel like I can decode anything now. But we've still got lots to cover. So up next, we're going to dive into representation
Okay.
and how Channel 4 portrays these incredible athletes.
Sounds good. So representation, it's a big deal in media studies,
Yeah.
especially when we talk about groups that, haven't always been shown in a positive or fair way.
Right. Yeah.
And Channel 4, they've actually got a pretty good track record when it comes to portraying disability.
Yeah. It feels like they've really pushed the boundaries with their Paralympic campaigns in the past, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. They've been really impactful. I think they've created this legacy of showing disability in a really genuine and empowering way.
Yeah, definitely. So how does superhuman kind of build on that legacy then?
Well, I think it starts with the title itself, right? Superhuman. It's
Right.
like they're deliberately highlighting both sides of the coin,
Yeah.
They could have just focused on the super part, all those incredible athletic achievements,
Yeah.
but they're acknowledging the human element, too.
It's not just about like the superhuman feats, is it?
Yay.
It's about like, the everyday realities of living with a disability.
Absolutely. It's about those relatable moments.
Yeah.
Grabbing groceries, dealing with a crying baby, going to the doctor, those sorts of things.
Right.
And Lindsay Atkins, she's 4Creative's executive creative director.
Okay.
She actually said that they wanted to move away from just focusing on the super and really show those everyday lives
Yeah.
and the sacrifices these athletes make.
It's about making them relatable to us, right?
Exactly.
Showing that they're not like these untouchable superheroes,
Yeah.
but real people with real challenges.
Real people. And I think it avoids those stereotypical representations of Paralympians that we see sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
Either as victims or as these superhuman figures.
Yeah, it's much more nuanced, isn't it?
Yeah, it's much more authentic, I think.
And it's not just showing one type of disability either.
No, exactly. We see a real diversity of disabilities and genders
Yeah.
and challenges represented,
Yeah.
which I think adds a lot of depth and complexity to it.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, hey, there's no one way to be a Paralympian.
Right.
Or to be disabled. It's celebrating that diversity.
Exactly. And this is where Stuart Hall's theory of representation comes in, right?
Okay.
Remember, he talked about meaning being communicated through signs and codes
Mm-hmm.
and how media representations can really shape our understanding of the world.
Right. So how does that apply to superhuman then?
Well, I think the advert is consciously trying to challenge those dominant, often negative representations of disability that we see in other media.
Yeah.
So instead of presenting Paralympians as, one-dimensional figures, it's showing them as complex individuals.
Yeah, we're seeing their personalities.
Exactly. Their own unique stories and strengths, but also their vulnerabilities.
It's not just about their disabilities, is it? It's about who they are as people.
Exactly. And if we connect this to David Gauntlet's theory of identity,
Okay.
we can see how the advert offers a more diverse and inclusive range of identities for viewers to connect with.
Okay. Yeah.
It's about expanding our understanding of what's possible and challenging those limiting definitions of what it means to be disabled.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
But I'm wondering, does focusing solely on the Paralympics, does that create kind of hierarchy within the disabled community?
Ooh, that's a really interesting point.
It is amazing to see these athletes achieving these incredible things, but does it kind of inadvertently suggest that, people who aren't elite athletes are somehow less super?
That's a really insightful point. And it's true, even the Paralympics, they try to be as inclusive as possible.
Yeah.
But they can't fully represent the huge spectrum of disability experiences out there.
Right.
There are lots of disabilities that aren't featured in the games.
Yeah.
And loads of disabled people who don't identify as athletes.
Okay.
So I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah. So while superhuman
Yeah.
is like a powerful step forward, it's important to remember it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Definitely.
There's still so much work to be done
Yeah.
to make sure that all disabled people feel seen and represented in the media.
Absolutely. Now, talking about viewers, I think it's time we shifted our focus to the audience.
Okay.
Who exactly is Channel 4 trying to reach with this advert?
Okay. So we've talked about all the techniques Channel 4 is using
Yeah.
and how they show disability in this really like refreshing and challenging way.
Right.
But who exactly are they hoping is going to watch this superhuman advert?
Well, it's definitely aimed at, like, a wide audience.
Okay.
Thinking about their regular Channel 4 viewers, of course.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, those in that 16 to 34 age bracket.
Okay.
But it goes beyond that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they're thinking about sports fans, too, right?
Of course.
And anyone who appreciates, inclusive representation.
And they're definitely not being subtle about grabbing our attention either.
Oh, absolutely not.
Like, some of those close-up shots,
Yeah.
they're so intimate, almost uncomfortably so.
I know.
Like that blister popping or the athlete attaching their prosthetic blade.
Yeah, they make you squirm a little, don't they?
It's captivating, but it also makes you, like, cringe a bit.
Yeah.
Do you think that's intentional?
Oh, absolutely. They want to pull you in,
Right.
make you really connect with the athlete's experiences
Yeah.
on a visceral level.
And they also use humor, don't they?
Yes.
Which I think is quite unexpected.
Yeah, you don't necessarily expect that.
Like those cartoon moments.
Yeah.
Or the way they put, like, grueling training next to everyday sounds, like a baby crying.
Right.
It keeps things engaging, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's really surprising.
But what really stands out for me is that, like, they focus on showing, not telling.
Yeah.
There's no voiceover explaining everything.
Right.
Or those, like, preachy graphics telling us what to think.
Exactly.
The stories just, like, speak for themselves.
And it's obviously worked.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the numbers.
Right.
Channel 4's Paralympic coverage reached a massive 20 million people.
Wow.
And 22% of those were in that 16 to 34 age bracket.
That's huge.
It is huge.
It really shows that, like, audiences are really up for this kind of representation.
Definitely.
And for people who watch Channel 4 regularly,
Yeah.
I feel like there's this expectation now that their Paralympic adverts are going to be something special.
It's true.
Like, you just can't wait to see what they come up with next.
Right. It's become like an event in itself.
I know. Alex Brooker,
Yeah.
who co-presents The Last Leg,
Uh-huh.
he even said that waiting for the Channel 4 Paralympics advert is like waiting for the John Lewis Christmas advert.
It's true. He did say that.
That's quite a high bar.
They've set the bar high.
But even with all the humor and those really feel-good moments, the advert doesn't shy away from, the tougher side of things.
No, it doesn't.
Like, remember that shot of the wheelchair user who can't get into the cafe?
Yeah, it's a brief moment.
Yeah, it's really quick.
But powerful, right?
It is, yeah.
It's a reminder that, those barriers still exist for disabled people.
Yeah, and the way they use time-lapse photography of, like, a bruise developing.
Yeah.
Or that powerful on-screen graphic that says, to be a Paralympian, there's got to be something wrong with you.
Right. Those are really designed to make you think.
It's so clever how they take that negative language
Yeah.
and, like, flip it.
It makes you confront those prejudices we all have, whether we realize it or not.
Exactly.
They're trying to change how we view disability
Right.
and encourage people to see being a Paralympian as something positive and empowering.
Definitely.
But of course, no media text exists in isolation.
Of course.
We have to think about the wider social and cultural context, right?
Yeah, because the world's always changing, and media kind of reflects those changes.
Exactly.
So what was happening around the time that this advert was made that might have influenced it?
Well, there was, and still is, this growing awareness about representation and inclusion in the media.
Okay.
And Channel 4, they've always had this mission to give a voice to groups that haven't always been heard.
Yeah.
So they've really been at the forefront of this movement.
It's not just about ticking boxes, is it?
No, not at all.
It's about real social change.
Absolutely. It's about breaking down stereotypes.
Yeah.
Showing that disabled people are just as capable and talented and interesting as everyone else.
And by focusing on that human element,
Yeah.
it's like they're appealing to our shared humanity,
I think so.
reminding us that we're all more alike than we are different.
Yeah. That's a really powerful message.
It is, and it's definitely resonating with audiences.
It seems to be.
But thinking about those different audiences,
Yeah.
it's interesting to think about how they might interpret the advert differently.
It is.
Didn't Stuart Hall have a theory about that?
He did, yeah. It's called reception theory.
Right.
And it basically argues that the meaning of a media text isn't fixed. It's like negotiated between the people who made it and the audience.
Right. So Channel 4 might have a preferred reading.
Yes.
They want us to be inspired. They want us to challenge our prejudices.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they want us to tune into the Paralympics.
Of course.
But not everyone's going to take away the same message.
No, that's the point of reception theory, isn't it?
So some people might fully embrace it,
Yeah.
while others might be a bit more resistant. Right?
Exactly. It all depends on our own experiences and our own perspectives.
So Some people might have a negotiated reading. They agree with some parts, but maybe not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are those who just completely reject the message.
Yeah, the oppositional reading.
It all depends on our own backgrounds,
Yeah.
and what we believe.
Right, our value.
It's amazing how one advert can spark so many different responses.
It is.
It makes you think about all the other things that shape how we see the world,
Definitely.
like all the media we consume every day.
Right. Speaking of which, didn't George Grubner have a theory about that?
Oh yeah, cultivation theory.
That's the one.
It suggests that if we're constantly exposed to certain messages in the media,
Yeah.
it can actually change how we see the world.
Right, especially when it comes to groups that we might not have much real life experience with.
Right.
So for some people, superhuman might be the first time they've really seen disabled people portrayed in this way.
Yeah.
So it can challenge those ingrained stereotypes
Right.
and broaden their understanding.
It's like offering a different perspective, a counter narrative to all those, often negative portrayals of disability we see elsewhere.
Exactly.
And that's why I think this advert is so important.
Yeah.
It's not just about, selling something
No,
or
yeah.
promoting an event.
It's bigger than that.
It's about changing how we see the world.
And the people in it.
Wow, we've really gone deep on super human, haven't we?
We have, from media language to representation, audiences to media context, we've
Okay.
covered it all.
And it's not just about passing those A-level exams.
Although that's definitely a good thing.
It is a bonus, for sure.
But it's also about being more informed,
Yeah.
more engaged citizens in a world that's completely saturated with media.
Absolutely.
So keep asking those questions,
Yeah.
challenge those assumptions, keep exploring this amazing world of media.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll even make your own groundbreaking advert one day.
Yeah, why not?
That challenges perceptions and sparks important conversations.
I like it.
But until then, keep those analytical eyes peeled.
Yeah.
You never know what clever techniques and hidden messages you'll find in the media you consume every day.
That's right.